everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma231 here, back in data about Navigatoria, chapter number 25. This chapter is titled Interstellar Friendship. And a few quick things before we get started on this Navigatoria chapter review. First off, at the recording of this video, yes, the Navigatoria series has ended at 30 chapters, and I'm honestly very disappointed I was not there to go and read the finale of the series whenever it came out, just by the nature of like, hey, I got very behind on videos for a myriad of reasons. There was a hurricane here in the southeastern United States, along with a bunch of other things that happened in the end of 2024, along with just like, hey, I'm a college student, so I don't have all the time in the world to always sit down and make all of these fun videos on Navigatoria, Kagurabachi, or whatever other manga series I like to talk about. And because of that, I have been very much behind on manga, and whenever I am behind on a manga that I like to make videos on, I try not to read the next chapter until I've read the current chapter and made a video on it, sort of not soil my thoughts going forward to like say like, oh, if there's some kind of big reveal in the next chapter of the series, like let's say there's a massive reveal in chapter number 26 of Navigatoria, I want to be able to read chapter number 25 and do a video on it as if I don't know the twist that's coming, right? And the best way that I found to do that is to simply just like not record the video. I mean, I know it may not sound like the most sane thing in the world, but it's just a motto I live by for making all of these YouTube videos and all of the other stuff, right? And because of that, we are recording chapter number 25, the chapter number 25 review of Navigatoria here about a week after the series actually ended with its final chapter. Not actually a week, more about like 3 days or so, and by the time this video gets uploaded, it should be about 4 days. So it's a little disappointing to be like, yeah, the series has ended. And also, just to also put it out there, I did skip a chapter of Navigatoria. I was not planning to, but like, hey, there was the extra chapter number 6 that was all about the class leaders, and I sat down and read it, and there are a few interesting things in it. I mean, there's a member of a soccer nation that actually gets referenced in this chapter number 25 that we are getting ready to be talking about, but overall, I'm just like, hey, I don't need to make extra videos of padding, like, won't actually sort of matter. Like, it was a good chapter, and it had a nice message to it, but not as good as some of the other chapters you got. Like, hey, we had a chapter all focused on Anastasia, and it was absolutely amazing, so I had to cover that chapter, right? But overall, sitting down here and talking about Navigatoria, chapter number 25 is definitely a ramping on point. I mean, we cover a lot of material in this chapter. I mean, overall, as you'll see, 2 months of time gets really just brought upon in this chapter. And of course, now that we know these series have ended, it's very obvious, like, hey, this is where it was going. But I still think this is a very good chapter because it brings in a lot of those good points that Navigatoria likes to bring in. And honestly, I don't have too much else to say before we get started with this chapter, so hey, let's go and get started with Navigatoria chapter number 25. But hey, before we can do that, we need to talk about what happened last time in chapter number 24, and last time we really just had this bigger moment where like, hey, Aiden is coming back to the Navigatoria school after his whole conflict in the cave exploration with, of course, him and Rikotan. All of those things that went back and forth all pretty much got solved, and also there was a lot of determination that got reforged, as I named last video, of like, hey, Manabu sort of sat down and was like, hey, I want to be the type of Navigatoria that makes everybody want to be part of my nation, right? I want to make sure that everybody can be all of these friends. A very, like, idealistic view of all of this, but still the approach that he was trying to take. Now, this chapter of Navigatoria actually starts off where that last chapter ended with a man named Hollie Blight, the person who originally started the Navigatoria project, walking towards a house with long grass around it, which, of course, as we know, is Navi's house. And that is directly where we start chapter number 25 of Navigatoria, Interstellar Friendship, as we see that Navi sort of opens the door to her house, and she runs outside, and she sees Hollie Blight standing outside and walking up towards the house. We see he's like, oh, hey, Navi, how's it going, right? And she runs up and gives him a big hug, and he's like, hey, Hollie, thank you so very much, right? And just gives him a super big hug, and even knocks Hollie back onto the ground, into the grass, and Hollie's just laughing out loud, like very, very loudly, ha, 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 ha. He's like, hey, the school uniform really does suit you, Navi, and Navi's also laughing up a storm, like they just really are happy to see each other, right? We see that Navi's Earth Admiral, pretty much like guard, pretty much comes and picks her up and is like, hey, don't be so rude to the colonel, right, or the colonel. And we even see that Hollie name drops this guy, as his name is Alose, right? Not really something we need to know, but it's still nice to have anyway. So Alose is pretty much picking up Navi, who is very like, hey, I want to hug Hollie some more, right? And we eventually see that they all go inside. Or no, they're not quite inside yet, my bad. As we see that Hollie's like, hey, I'll say, thank you so very much for looking after Navi and for caring for my vacation home too. And Alice is like, of course, certainly, sir, right? And he's like, hey, Hollie, if you're actually back, does that mean the matter has been resolved? And Hollie's like, oh yeah, it has. I've been cleared of all of the charges against me, which is like, first off, this guy has a vacation home on this planet, and he's letting Navi stay in it, which is very nice. Like, I really like Hollie off the fact that Navi really likes him, and if Navi really likes him, then I can like Hollie pretty much, right? But like, what crimes did this guy have charged against him? And it was like, hey, I've been cleared of all of the charges. Like, what did he do? Of course, if I had to guess, it's probably something with the first generation of the Navigatoria project, being that it, of course, got shut down early. A little bit of a sad thing there, and all of the death and destruction that apparently happened with it. I mean, we know that, of course, Kirin's cousin or whatever it was, Lycra, we know that her legs got pretty much mutilated in the original generation of the Navigatoria school. So I'm guessing that's what Hollie's crimes are, but we don't really have any confirmation at this point. Like I said, we may get stuff in the upcoming chapters, right? Hollie also just says like, yay, and now perhaps I should also say hello to my mentor. And now he's like, oh, your mentor, Hollie. As we see Hollie's eyes just go a little bit pale and they just dart forward, he just says, yes, the current headmaster. At this point, we cut scenes away from Navi's house, or I guess now we know that it is actually Hollie's vacation home, but it is still Navi's house. I think I've already like written out in the various things like, yeah, it is Navi's house, all things considered, right? We then cut to a leader meeting where we see the current headmaster of the Navigatoria school, whose face is completely shrouded in shadow this entire chapter, but you even see he's like wearing a little bit of a bowler's cap, right? Comes in and just says like, hello everybody, allow me to introduce the new chairman, Colonel Hollie Blight, right? As we just see that Hollie's like, hey, pleased to meet you all class leaders, right? And we see all of the various class leaders are just saying like a bunch of things, whispering to each other. We see that Christina's just like, hey, so you know them, right? And now he's like, yeah, I sure do know Hollie, right? And then we also see that, oh, what's her name? Yeah, Joanne's just like, hey, who is the elderly man again? And Manabu's like, I'm pretty sure that's the headmaster, even though we've only seen him once at the entrance ceremony. Ooh, a little bit of like a spooky thing looking here, right? As Manabu just thinks to himself like, huh, has Admiral Morel just like gone off to war or something? Like, what has particularly happened to make him disappear? Like, we all know that an interplanetary war has broken out, right? So like, Manabu doesn't quite know everything, but he pretty much hit the nail straight on the head here, right? Hollie starts to just talk to all of the various class leaders saying like, hey guys, well now you all might feel a little uneasy because the guy who appeared out of nowhere suddenly got made chairman in front of you guys, right? So let me put all of your worries to rest right away. I'm one of the founding members of this school. And everybody's like, oh, okay, that's pretty interesting. Hollie's also like, isn't that right, headmaster, right? The headmaster remains silent in this moment. As we see that Hollie just says like, hey, and I have a special assignment from the 4th Admiral. Allow me to introduce it here and now. The 4th Admiral is called Rybia Akula. She was also invited here, but things aren't going so well in space, I'm afraid. And we see the various design of Rybia Akula, and honestly, it looks pretty cool. We see that she sort of got like this shroud around her face. Like, I don't know, it's just very interesting and striking design. She also has this piece of hair that like comes down in front of her face and smirks off to the side. I'm sure that we would have seen more of her if this series had more legs, but also we may be seeing her in some future chapters. Don't really know, right? As Hollie just says like, hey, the 4th special assignment is the Interstellar Friendship. In 2 months' time, we'll hold a sports event as well as a festival of the arts with children from allied planets. Like, hey, we'll have gold, silver, and bronze medals for each contest. Do your best to win them against the aliens. We will be rated based on your numbers of medals, right? And Manu's like, oh, aliens? As this is pretty interesting. It is pretty much like an Olympic game on a much higher level, but only for students of these special school programs, as we will be seeing here in a minute. But a little bit of a cool thing, and I do really like the whole thing of like Hollie being like, hey, you guys need to make friends with other people. It's good for like navigating or oh, what's the word? Oh gosh, why can I not remember the word I'm thinking of right now? It's not marketing. It's getting to know people in your industry, going around, networking. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't know why I couldn't think of it all. But still pretty cool. Like, hey, we have gold, silver, and bronze medals. So, like, literally the Olympic medals. We even see the medals design as they're, like, just like, hey, they're this typical ribbon medal, and they are pretty much a circle with a star design with the 4 points of the star touching the circle, the outside circle of the medal. They look all right, but it's like, is this really the best medal you could have come up with? I mean, this is literally the Earth Army for, like, the most prestigious school in the universe, pretty much. Like, I think you guys could have done a bit better, right? Well, after all of this sort of stuff, and everybody's like, whoa, that's pretty weird, right? All the class leaders. We then cut inside of the classroom, where we see that Manabu, who's, of course, class leader, is pretty much going like, hey, guys, so can I please ask you all to decide on the games and categories you guys want to take part in, right? And it's like, hey, there are also competitions for teams and pairs also, right? And like, hey, organize all of your teams by yourselves, please. And hey, you are allowed to work with the other classes. Like, hey, this is a big interstellar friendship thing. We all want to make sure that we're all sort of represented evenly, right? We see a few of the Class D students are sort of like turning around if each other. I mean, like, we see one guy says like, hey, I wonder if the aliens are athletic at all, right? And we see one girl's like, don't look at me, I have no clue, right? And we even see Madeline's just like, hey, well, there's cooking, but I probably can't only choose that. Like, I need to be on as many as I can to get as many medals as I can, right? And we even then look, and she sees like, oh, on the list of all the events, there are actually 10 contests for the 4 kings, which is like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Like, I'm glad we're bringing in this game of, like, weird 4-player chess into the mix. As we see, like, hey, there's a 2-on-2 thing, like a team contest, puzzles for time attack for 2, all events freestyle, and the last one looks like sport that we can really see on the screen, right? So it's like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty interesting, right? And she even says, like, oh, like, I see. 4 Kings is even a common board game in space, right? And we even see that, who's his face? Rikudan's like, oh, yeah, the Earth Army also recommended it, right? As we, in this moment, we see that the school door opens, or the door to the classroom opens, and we see somebody walk in and just be like, hey, good morning. As Manabu and all of the other people sort of look shocked at who it is, and they're like, oh, Aiden, you're here, right? As we see that Manabu comes over, gives him a little bit of a fist bump, like, hey, so you came back to school today, huh? And Aiden's like, yep, I sure did, right? As we then see that a few of these characters go over and do some various things, like Aiden walks in and just says like, hey, Miss Madeleine, please team up with me for the 4 Kings, won't you, right? And Manabu's like, hey, you know I'm available too, right? Or no, Rikutan's like, hey, I'm available too. And Manabu's then like, hey, no, all of you guys late. Madeline, you please team up with me, right? And then we see that Madeline's, of course, like, oh, Manabu, of course I'll team up with you. Because, of course, we know how Madeleine feels about Manabu. So a little bit of a funny thing there, right? As we then see that Manabu's just thinking like, hey, maybe I should ask Navi about being part of some of these team competitions too. So it seems like all of the Class D students are having some very nice bonding, right? Well, we suddenly cut to 2 months later when we see this very weirdly designed spaceship land on the planet of the Mental. And we see out of this spaceship walks a few of these aliens. As we see it, they pretty much are humanoid figures. They are wearing these pretty much long dresses with black, triangle-based stripes on the bottom. That's really the best way I can describe their design. But they seem to have these very weird ear structures that are sort of like very frilly in a way, right? As we see, of course, the leader alien who we will be mainly focusing on this chapter, we sadly don't get his name, but we just know him. I'm just going to call him leader alien or alien leader. I don't know. Lee Alien. Yes, his name is Lee Alien now, right? And we say Lee Alien is just like, hey, it's nice to meet you, Earthling friends. It's delightful to be able to deepen our fellowship with you. And we see, of course, facing all of the various aliens, we see that all of the class leaders are standing there holding a bunch of flower bouquets in their hands. And we see the Manabu's like, oh yeah, likewise, as we see that Christina's like, hey, there are also candidates for leadership on another colonized planet. And Joanne's like, hey, I guess they're in the same position as us then. As you see that Navi really just stares deeply into all of these aliens' souls, right? As she looks around, and she sees that this group of aliens has this weird, like, mini dinosaur-looking creature with it, right? As Navi's like, hey, oh, and who is this, right? As we see that, what did I just call him? Leader Alien, yes, the alien, right? We see the alien's just like, yes, this is a resident of our colonized planet. But how interesting, you don't appear to be in chains. As we see, he's of course referring to Navi. Navi's like, what did you just say to me, right? As we see the Manabu sort of takes some action, starts to walk forward towards the alien in this moment, and goes and sort of dives through all of the flowers that he's holding, and goes to shake his hand. And it is a very firm handshake, as Manabu just goes really squeeze his hand, right? And as this happens, Manabu just thinks like, hey, I'm definitely not going to lose to this guy. And we see the alien also just smiles at him and just like, ha, hey, right? As they quit the handshake and do all of that, as we see the alien drops the rest of his flowers on the ground, he's like, hey, we're also completing for the highest number of medals too, right? We won't lose. As in, we get a little bit of narration, or what I often also could just be like some announcement saying like, hey, I declare the Interstellar Friendship open. Now then, dear students, please follow the directions and grow up your contestants and categories, right? As we see, then a bunch of events start to happen. As we just see a bunch of various events, we see cycling, we see swimming, we see piano playing, we see badminton, we see tennis, we see cooking, we see soccer, we see like regular good old jogging, we see Flane from, of course, the Class D, the Medical Nation, having like a little bit of a medical box in his hand running around. We see painting, we see archery, we see balance sports, we also see like powerlifting along with golf, breakdancing. And the final sport that we see is Manabu here in his attire for martial arts. But before we really get to all of that, I want to talk about a few of these really sports that we see here going on. Of course, we see the painter student and also the, the piano student. We got an extra chapter on them before, like their sort of relationship and how their two countries, like they were becoming good friends, but then their two countries sort of broke out in war. This is also touched on the last extra chapter number 6 that we just got not here too recently. It was actually the chapter that released before this one, if you would believe me, right? We also see the guy from the Soccer Nation. Soccer was a big part of that. He's also in Class C, like the piano player and the painter are. So a little bit of a cool and interesting thing there. We see the cooking competition. It seems like this is probably Madeleine doing it, but we don't really see the face of whoever's participating in it. And really, that's all who we really recognize besides like, hey, we see Flane here doing his thing. And then Manabu is doing his thing, right? And as we look at Manabu's whole thing, we see that he's got his hand outstretched, getting ready to do his martial arts. As we see that he just brings his flat, outstretched hand right into the alien and sort of smashes him on the ground. As we see that whoever's scoring this just says like, oh, Ippon, which I didn't know this, but is apparently the highest point possible in judo, and it immediately ends a match, right? And we see in this moment that Manabu gets crowned with the gold medal, and it looks like the alien, or leader alien, whatever you want to call him, he looks like he gets the silver medal, because of course he came in second place, right? And he's like, not too bad, right? Manabu's like, hey, well, judo is an earth sport, so like, but hey, you were really quite strong yourself, right? As Lee Alien's just like, whatever, right? And then Leon just says like, hey, are you going to be participating in the Four Kings later? And Manabu's like, oh yes, I actually do plan to. And Manabu then just thinks like, oh, wait a second. Did this guy just like insult me by saying like I'm not smart enough to participate in the Four Kings? But he's like, hey, whatever. As Lillian just says like, hey, I will definitely win. As we see the stadium where the Interstellar Friendship Contest is currently going on, we see it in the daytime. We see a bunch of cheering going on, and then we see that it is now night outside. As we cut inside the Earth Army Crystal Hall, as we see there's an extravagant dinner in the evening, right? As we see Manabu standing around in front of a bunch of these various trays, and we see that he has like a bunch of medals on his pretty much chest. It looks like he's got either 3 or 4. We can definitely tell 3, but I don't know. He may have a 4th one hiding in there somewhere, right? And then we see that the alien sort of walks up beside him, and we see that the alien has a lot more medals. I mean, we can just clearly see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on him at least, and we don't know how many more he's got sort of hiding on below that, right? But we see the alien has a plate of food in front of him, right? as we pretty much get a little bit of narration saying like, hey, the aim of this assignment has got to be deepening relations with aliens from allied planets, right? And Manu's like, oh yeah, sure, I mean, I will, right? As he sort of like starts to talk to the aliens, being like, hey, so you guys, so you gathered an impressive amount of metals there, huh? Like, that's really pretty good. Like, aren't they very heavy on you? And the aliens is like, hey, no, it's because I'm the one with the most potential. I'm even student council president, you know? And Mom was like, oh yeah, we actually don't have that system here. We've got a much different one of like, we've got these class leaders, pretty much describes all of that, right? As Leonie just is like, oh, that's right. You were uncomfortable back there, weren't you, right? When you saw the resident of the colonized planet that we brought with us, right? As of course he remembers like the guy was on a leash and like it wasn't very nice and all of that, right? Even though I think it's a little bit different, whatever, like yes, the creature on that planet definitely seems to be an animal that we don't know really if it can speak, like, but we know that the Mentals can't speak, they have a language, like they are humanoid figures, so I think it's a bit of a different question there, but I still like the idea that Navigatoria is trying to go for here, right? As we see that Lealien just says like, hey, that made me curious. I'd heard that the Mentalians would be made livestock if a person from Earth won. You act positively towards them, towards your Mentalian schoolmate, right? Was that just for show, or are you truly serious? What kind of Navigatoria are you trying to be exactly? And this really catches Manabu off guard, as Manabu sort of like starts a little bit like, I want to make a nation in which everyone can happily become friends, even if they do come from different nations, right? And Lealien's a little bit shocked by this, and it's just like, unbelievable, how much of a softie can you truly be? This everyone, that includes the Mentalian, doesn't it, right? And Manabu is sort of silent for a second, as we see that Lealien is just like, hey, that's impossible. And it's not just her, it's everyone, right? As Manabu's like, what do you particularly mean here, right? As Lealien is like, hey, everyone at this academy will be unhappy if you become the Navigatoria, won't they? As you get a little bit of a two-page spread, seeing all of these other characters along with Lealien saying this directly to Manabu's face, as you see that Aiden and Rigotan and Navi are all of the characters that are really focused on here, and yeah, they probably all will be unhappy if Manabu becomes the Navigatoria. And Manabu even says that, he's like, yeah, they actually will, right? And Lealien's just like, hey, the hell, so you actually understand it? Like, so you have no choice but to disregard all of your friends' happiness, right? And Manabu's like, hey, but don't you actually also want everybody to be happy, right? And we even see the Lealien's like, hey, shut up, that was all just lip service, right? And that's where we end this chapter of Navigatoria, right? As we get the final little words of like, hey, is the friendship event a success? And like I said, that's where we end this chapter. I thought it was a fine chapter. I really didn't have any issue with it. Honestly, I did enjoy the most part of this chapter, seeing what Hollie's up to, getting like, oh, we have this mystery of who the current chairman is. I don't know if that's going to get resolved or not. Hey, Aiden's back in school, and then the aliens land. There's a little bit of a conflict there, and I do like the alien design. I like our leading alien guy that we really focus on in this chapter. And just seeing how it all works out, seeing all the competitions. Of course, if this series would have gone longer, we probably would have seen more of these conversations in depth, but it's not really something that I'm complaining about. I do just very much like how the pacing is done in this chapter, until eventually the end where like we have this dinner party, and I honestly don't think it's the most incredible thing where the aliens is like, hey man, you yourself there, you know you're going to make everybody unhappy as an Navigatoria, is of course something that we need to hear from Manabu's perspective, but also it was just like, yeah, it's fine. It wasn't like the big thing of like, man, this is crazy to hear Manabu say this, because we already know this is where the series is going, because if Manabu doesn't become the Navigatoria, then he's dead, so he really has no other option. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say about this Navigatoria chapter. I did enjoy it. Not really the best chapter of the series, but also like not one of the worst ones either. And yeah, with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video on Navigatoria chapter number 25. Again, this chapter was titled Interstellar Friendship. I will see you guys next time for chapter number 26 of Navigatoria. But hey, until then, if you want to hear some of my other thoughts on Navigatoria, or really any other manga series out there, I'm not saying that I cover every single manga series, but I cover a few of them that run on Weekly Shonen Jump. Like, mainly World Trigger, we talk about Kagurabachi sometimes. We also do just general videos on Weekly Shonen Jump, and whenever I can, whenever I'm fully caught up on all of this stuff, I plan to get back to doing my anime reviews on series like Link Quick, Hell's Paradise, Kakariko. Of course, you need to talk about Bleach still. Like, I still have a lot more things I need to be talking about on this channel to get caught up. But, like, for now, we're just catching up on Navigatoria. And like I said, again, this is chapter number 25, titled Interstellar Friendship. And I will catch you guys next time for chapter number 26. And yeah, until then, I'll see you guys there. So, yeah, this will be Glowplasma 231, signing out.